Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and a very warm welcome to Evolving Consciousness. Today's video is my humble attempt and a dedication to understand Lord Ganesha. Because today is the auspicious occasion of Ganesh Chaturthi, and we all are occupied in the festivities. The very reason our ancient sages, rishis, and sages established festivals, and there's a lot of history and background as to why they were established in a certain way. Throughout the year, the Hindu culture has different festivals. But the sad and unfortunate part is most of us have forgotten the spiritual dimension of it. And we are only engaging in the ritualistic aspects. And there's nothing wrong in that. But if you want to fully capitalize, if you want to fully do justice to that festival, one cannot ignore the spiritual dimension associated with each festival. Now, coming to Ganesha, Lord Ganesh himself. Now, one can learn countless lessons from Lord Ganesh, but we will focus on what are the top 3 or top 4 lessons which you and me can learn from Lord Ganesh. And the focus will be on the spiritual dimension of it. Now, to begin with, we all have heard of the infamous story of Lord Ganesha, the fact that he was born out of his mother's dust, and the famous fight between the father and son, which eventually led to the ripping off of Ganesha's head, and which was eventually replaced by the head of an elephant. You all are aware, well acquainted with that story. But have we deeply contemplated as to what is this story trying to tell us? Today's understanding is based on one of the articles which was published by Brahma Kumari's sister Shivani. So at the very outset, I would like to give the source of the content I'm establishing in this video, or I'm throwing out in this video. She said something beautiful in that particular article. The head is basically symbolic of ego in a person. Now, there is no person in this planet who can claim that is absolutely egoless. If there is someone, that person is not normal, is enlightened. The problem with most of us is we have a limited understanding of this word ego. For us, ego equates to superiority complex, the feeling of superiority. But ego is much beyond that. Ego is not just superiority complex. Ego is also inferiority complex. Now, some of you might be baffled and some of you might think, what did I just say? Because the common understanding of ego is when a person is filled with arrogance, is when a person is filled with a lot of overblown sense of pride because of his achievements or because of his financial standing in society. That person is egoistic. But what if I told you, even a person who is the most successful failure is also egoistic? Inferiority complex is also a form of ego. Now, the way we can understand ego is whenever there is this comparison, whenever there is a parallel between your self-image and the world's self-image, and there's always a comparison between your achievements and someone else's achievements. And either you feel proud or you feel melancholy, both the extremes. You are operating through the mode of ego. Now, the fact remains that ego is the biggest enemy. Now, this is not only from a spiritual standpoint, but if you look at people who have been phenomenally successful in the material dimension, you'll notice that these people are extremely humble. Humility is their natural disposition. And if you understand that ego is not going to help you in any way, because if you're going to feel inferior and confine yourself in that boundary, because understand what's inferiority, understand what's superiority. Both these complexes have their root in the word comparison. And it is often said comparison is the thief of joy. Now let's go back to the story of Lord Ganesha. Now Lord Shiva symbolizes knowledge, symbolizes consciousness, spiritual consciousness. And once one is engulfed or once is developing spiritual awareness, spiritual consciousness within himself, he is easily able to, or in other words, effortlessly able to eradicate ego, which was symbolized by the beheading of Lord Ganesha's human head. And the elephant head, which was replaced with the human head, is basically symbolic of wisdom. Do you know what the word Ganapati means? Let me deconstruct it for you. Ga means buddhi or intelligence. Na means Vijnana or wisdom, and Pati means master. So the word Ganapati means master of buddhi, intelligence and wisdom. And if you understand this, that the person who is blessed with intelligence and wisdom, no obstacle is difficult for him to overcome. It is often said in management circles that knowledge is power. Knowledge is power, but if it's not evolved or transformed into wisdom, it is of little use. Because one can always acquire knowledge from a plethora of sources. One can read n number of books. But if that knowledge is not made use of, is not implemented in a practical basis, on a day-to-day basis, that knowledge does not evolve into wisdom. And the reason Lord Ganesha is considered the bestower of wisdom and intelligence is because of the fact that the person who is truly egoless is a person who is worthy of intelligence. Because if your consciousness is blinded by ego, buddhi and intelligence cannot rest within you. In simpler terms, the people who are more humbler are the people who are more open to the idea of learning. There are some people who think they know everything. They are perfect the way they are, who rule out any possibility of growth, who think they know everything, be it in any field. But if you look at people who are masters in their respective fields, they say that I'm still learning. They always are open to the idea of learning. Now, this is not only about spirituality, even in the material world. When we want to progress, when we want to expand the horizons of our knowledge, one always needs to be humble. Humble enough to accept the fact that there is more to know. And once we become humble, once we become more elevated in terms of our own consciousness, ego starts reducing. Now, after hearing the contents which I have talked about till this time in the video, some of you might be thinking that probably I don't have a lot of ego. But let me tell you, if you have the tendency to get hurt, or the tendency to feel humiliated, or the tendency to suffer, which 99%, myself included, would have, we all have a certain amount of ego. As I mentioned previously, if you are someone who is egoless, you are enlightened. So the idea here is not to become enlightened. The idea here is to fully digest this thought and acknowledge this thought that all suffering has its root in this three-letter word called ego. Whether it be melancholy, whether it be anxiety, whether it be anger, they're all byproducts, or they all can be found, the origins of all these nasty demonic emotions is ego. And Lord Ganesha symbolizes the eradication of ego. And the head of the elephant, it's symbolic of wisdom. The fact that Lord Ganesha has bigger ears, what is it trying to tell us? Have you ever thought about what are the virtues which the symbolism is of Lord Ganesha trying to tell us? most of us are very ritualistic. We don't understand the deep significance of this symbolism. The ears are inspiring us, are telling us to be more in terms of listening, to be more good listeners instead of just speaking. Listening is the most undervalued skill in today's world. All management consultants say, be a great speaker, but how many of us pause and listen? And the thing is, most of us, if you observe, we are only listening to rehearse a reply and we are not giving our complete attention to the words the other person is saying. You are probably rehearsing a reply to the person's talk. This is the sad reality of most of us, and Lord Ganesha is basically symbolizing or epitomizing the significance of listening. And the one who listens more is able to understand more, is able to perceive more, is able to grasp more. And what does the small eyes of Lord Ganesha say? Now, this can mean many things, but one of the prime things which that says the fact that one needs to limit the sensory impulses. There's a recent study which says that most of us are going to be chronic addicts of social media down the line because there's so much input of information that the brain, the attention span of an average human being today is less than 8 seconds. We are worse than a goldfish whose attention span is 9 seconds. Can you believe that? As hilarious as that might sound, that is the sad reality of today's human life. Now, the reason why this is happening is we are so much exposed to a lot of information in this social media. And Lord Ganesha is trying to point towards the importance of having less sensory stimulation, be it from the outside world or be it from the social media apps which we are so addicted to use. And also the fact, Lord Ganesha also talks about the importance of keen observation. The small eyes also tell us how important it is to observe the details, to read between the lines. Now, these qualities might seem very common, and probably you might be thinking this is nothing new. Everyone knows that we need to be a good listener, we need to look at things with a lot of precision and meticulous attention to detail. But the fact that the Ganesh Chaturthi is celebrated every year and we worship Lord Ganesha, but we haven't understood what the qualities of Lord Ganesha truly means. Because at a subtle level and at a gross level, there's so many different understandings one can derive out of. And as I mentioned, the point of egoless, the point of beheading the ego so that we can perceive more, the point that we can listen more and limit our sensory impulses, limit our sensory information. Now, this is no way suggesting that we should not increase our knowledge pool. It's all they are suggesting is that the more you bombard your mind with information, the more choices are at your disposal. And the more choices you have at your disposal, the difficult it is going to be to make decisions. Decision making is very difficult these days because of the boundless choices we have. Also, what does one very important lesson Lord Ganesha talks about? When Lord Ganesha was writing the epic Mahabharata, so you all probably know that on the dictation of sage Vyas, right, Vyas Muni, Lord Ganesha was scripting and writing the whole epic saga of Mahabharata. But Vyasa had put a condition on Lord Ganesha that you should write non-stop, you should not stop while I am dictating. During the course of dictation, what happens is the pen or the instrument through which Lord Ganesha was scripting the epic Mahabharata breaks. And you know what Lord Ganesha does after that? He breaks one of his tusks and he uses that tusk, the piece of the tusk, in scripting the great Mahabharata. the epic Mahabharata. Now, what does this convey? This conveys the power of sacrifice. Because oftentimes we are so much in our complacent zones that we think that our comfort is more important than a sense of duty. Lord Ganesha knew the importance of delivering the epic Mahabharata to the world, and he did not care or he did not think twice before breaking his tusk. I hope the messages I'm trying to portray are making sense to you, because most of us believe in our gods, but very few of us know our gods in a lot of spiritual depth. There's a lot of symbolism, there's a lot of depth behind every god which Sanatan culture or the great culture of Hinduism it propagates. There's a lot of depth within it. But we have made all our festivals very ritualistic. And funnily enough, our relationship with God has become transactional. We pray to God so that we can fulfill our material desires. And I'm not trying to pass a judgment or trying to talk lowly of those aspects. All I'm inviting you to consider with utmost respect is, let's not forget the very basis of our God, the very basis of the messages which we are trying to be conveyed through those stories, through those pastimes. I hope my message for today's auspicious festival of Ganesh Chaturthi struck a chord within you. And now you will look at the festivals through a fresh lens. Thank you so much for your time on my video, and I wish you a very happy and auspicious Ganesh Chaturthi, and I'll meet you in my next video. Thank you so much. Bye.